An architect can draw a stunning blueprint for a 100-story skyscraper, but if the construction crew stops cold, you can't live in a drawing. The Univex white paper operates on a similar premise. It maps out an enormous proposed ecosystem for its token, tying it to transaction fees, internal swaps, and eventual retail settlement. But mapping out an ecosystem on paper is very different from a development team actually writing the code, deploying the infrastructure, and launching a live product. This brings us to token utility. A token can have dozens of proposed functions, but its value remains entirely theoretical until it is actively circulating within a functioning network. This creates a massive friction point. As an investor, you have to separate a project's planned use cases from demonstrated market demand. Getting in early on a blueprint might capture initial upside, but if the network never materializes, you face the severe risk of heavy token dilution. Relying solely on marketing descriptions leaves your capital exposed. Evaluating hard evidence, like live code and user metrics, protects it. Buying an asset based entirely on theoretical design places your capital at the mercy of a development team's execution. Univex intends to kickstart its network by distributing high-yield token rewards. The goal is to incentivize initial users and artificially generate market attention. To pay out those high yields, the protocol has to mint new tokens. Mechanically, the total supply must aggressively and continuously expand. Let's look at this graph to see the mathematical relationship between that supply expansion and real-world application usage over time. As those early reward distributions flood the market, the token supply arcs sharply upward. But real application usage often stagnates once the initial launch hype fades, creating a flat line at the bottom of the chart. The massive gap between these two metrics is the devaluation zone. Here, inflation destroys the token's baseline value, because there is no actual demand to absorb new supply. Market psychology takes over at this point. Early adopters will immediately sell their inflated rewards into the market if the network lacks actual utility to keep them engaged. If actual network adoption doesn't immediately outpace the rate of supply expansion, your invested capital is systematically diluted into nothing. Univex proposes countering this dilution with an internal economy driven by application activity and swap fees. In theory, this creates a closed-loop economy. Users pay fees, and those tokens are burned or locked to offset the inflation from the reward payouts. To test these claims against reality, we need an evidence audit. We have to map out exactly what proof is required to justify the valuation. The structural flaw in this closed-loop design is that it requires a constant, unending stream of new user acquisition to generate those fees. Shifting established user behavior away from deeply entrenched competitor platforms takes immense resources and time. Users don't migrate without a compelling reason. If Univex fails to capture actual market share with demonstrably superior technology, internal liquidity dries up and drops to zero. A closed-loop token economy without active users is effectively a dead mall with an expanding currency. Univex makes one particularly aggressive promise in its current white paper: using their token for everyday, real-world retail settlement. This specific feature is highly appealing. It offers a tangible bridge between crypto speculation and real-world utility. But bridging that gap requires surviving a grueling, multi-jurisdictional process to secure regulatory approval. It also requires a massive volume of external, real-world liquidity so merchants can safely accept and process a highly volatile asset. Typing the words retail settlement into a white paper takes 10 seconds. Executing it takes years of complex legal battling and compliance audits. Without verified regulatory approval and active merchant liquidity, this proposed utility is actually just a legal liability. At this stage, you have to analyze your own strategy. Are you trading short-term hype, or are you investing in long-term utility? Let's use a decision tree for Univex's development phase. The central question is, are working products live? For speculative beginners, treating theoretical features as guarantees leads to maximum speculative risk. If products aren't live, wait for evidence. You avoid heavy allocation until you can verify absolute on-chain proof of active daily users. For the fundamental optimizer, auditing liquidity and compliance metrics leads to a risk-adjusted valuation. Knowing your own risk profile dictates whether you are blindly chasing narrative-driven inflation traps or making sound investments. The core rule here is straightforward. Never evaluate a token project on what it says it will do in the future. You evaluate projects strictly on what the market is currently doing with the asset today. This rigorous approach comes with a trade-off. It requires significant technical research and a lot of patience. A token project can have 100 planned utilities, but only one thing truly protects capital from dilution. As the research notes, actual utility depends on working products. Investors must demand demonstrated evidence over white paper descriptions.